You've probably heard of Adolf Hitler. He stands as an emblem of hatred, bigotry, and the darkest depths of human cruelty. Yet, before Adolf Hitler became the genocidal maniac who forever scarred history, he was an advocate of a terrible belief: white supremacy. Shockingly, this belief wasn't limited to the twisted mind of Hitler alone. It had taken root in the minds of many Europeans and even in the United States during a dark period in history. In the early 20th century, racial prejudice was widespread across the globe. The idea of white supremacy, which claimed that white Europeans were better than people of other races, was deeply ingrained in society. It justified terrible acts of discrimination, segregation, and colonialism. At its core, this ideology suggested that black people were inferior, treated as second-class citizens, and often dehumanized. But history sometimes surprises us. It can give rise to heroes from unexpected places, people who challenge the norms and beliefs of their time. Jesse Owens was one such hero. Despite facing overwhelming odds and enduring racial prejudice, Owens emerged as a symbol of courage and hope. Jesse Owens was born into a world that had already decided his abilities based on the color of his skin. Yet he shattered those expectations with every step he took on the track. His remarkable story goes beyond sports. It's about resilience, determination, and breaking the barriers of racial hatred. This video explores Jesse Owens' incredible journey, how he stood up to white supremacists, and how he inspired change in a world divided by racism. Through his remarkable achievements and unwavering spirit, Owens showed that the human potential knows no bounds, even in the darkest times of our history. Also, as a way of supporting our efforts, hit the like button of the video, share, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Your support means a lot to us. James Cleveland Jesse Owens was born near Oakville, Alabama, on September 12, 1913, the 12th child of sharecroppers Henry Cleveland and Mary Emma Owens. Owens, the youngest child, was spared much of the difficult farm work because of his persistent pneumonia, which nearly killed him twice in his young life. In 1922, Henry and Emma Owens moved north to Cleveland, Ohio. The move immediately exposed young Owens to regular schooling and participation in athletics. During his senior year at East Technical High School, Owens ran the 100-yard sprint in 9.4 seconds, tying the national record at the time and garnering his first national attention. After completing high school in 1933, Owens attended Ohio State University at a time when the institution offered no athletic scholarships. He worked part-time to support himself through college as he continued to set records on the track field. On May 25, 1935, during the National Intercollegiate Championship at Ann Arbor, Michigan, Owens set 4 new world records in the 100-yard sprint, the long jump, the 220-yard sprint, and the 220-yard low hurdles. He was already set to appear on the international stage. By early 1933, Adolf Hitler had effectively become the dictator of Germany. All non-Nazi parties, organizations, and labor unions had ceased to exist. The reciprocal ideologies of pan-Germanic expansionism and anti-Semitism had taken root. Members of non-Aryan, non-white, and Jewish races were perceived and portrayed as inferior and degenerate. Nazi sports imagery served to promote the myth of Aryan racial superiority. So-called Aryan facial features, blonde hair and blue eyes, were accentuated in posters and journal illustrations. Shortly after assuming power as Chancellor of Germany, Adolf Hitler moved forward with plans to turn the 1936 Summer and Winter Olympics into showcases for his regime. He ordered the construction of a massive new stadium in Berlin and channeled funds toward the completion of an airport to welcome international visitors. Additionally, the Summer Games were meant to be the first to reach audiences around the world via television, as well as the first to feature the now traditional element of the Olympic torch relay. In April 1933, the Nazis' sports office ordered all public athletic organizations to implement an Aryans-only policy. The policy sparked global outrage. Just 2 years earlier, the International Olympic Committee, IOC, had awarded the 1936 Summer Olympics to Berlin, and now Olympic organizers in the United States and Europe were considering pulling out of the Berlin Olympics altogether. In 1934, Avery Brundage, the president of the United States Olympic Committee, responded to reports of German persecution of Jewish athletes by inspecting German sporting facilities. Brundage determined that Jewish athletes were being treated fairly and subsequently came out in favor of sending American athletes to Berlin. In December 1935, the Amateur Athletic Union, which represented the United States in international sports federations, approved U.S. participation by a narrow vote. Olympic organizations from other countries followed suit. As 1936 began, Owens was the favorite to make the U.S. Olympic team, where he joined Ralph Metcalfe, the previous record holder in the 100-yard sprint. The Olympic Games were scheduled for Berlin, and Adolf Hitler used the setting to promote Nazi theories of Aryan supremacy and the re-emergence of Germany on the world political scene. At the beginning of the Games, German athletes dominated their competitors before home crowds numbering over 100,000. Most observers believed the Germans would win gold medals in most major track and field events. However, Owens would put an end to those dreams. From almost the get-go, Owens seized the reins as the star of the 1936 Summer Olympics. He coasted to a gold medal in his first event, the 100-meter dash, and followed with a highly publicized victory over German champion Luz Long in the long jump, an event embellished by the tall tale of Long offering advice to help his opponent win. After setting an Olympic record in the 200-meter dash en route to a third gold medal, Owens put the exclamation point on his showing by running the opening leg of a record-shattering US 4x100 relay performance. He became the first American of any race to win 4 gold medals in track and field in a single Olympics, an achievement that stood unaccompanied until Carl Lewis matched him in 1984. 18 African-American athletes had competed, and Jesse Owens was the most successful athlete of any race. The first day of the event, Nazi Germany's leader Adolf Hitler shook hands with the German victors only and then left the stadium. International Olympic Committee President Henri de Baillet-Latour insisted that Hitler greet every medalist or none at all. Hitler opted for the latter and skipped all further medal presentations. He also did not publicly congratulate any of the other medal winners. Owens's success at the Games caused consternation for Hitler, who was using them to show the world a resurgent Nazi Germany. He and other government officials had hoped that German athletes would dominate the Games. Nazi Minister Albert Speer wrote that Hitler was highly annoyed by the series of triumphs by the marvelous colored American runner, Jesse Owens. People whose antecedents came from the jungle were primitive, Hitler said with a shrug. Their physiques were stronger than those of civilized whites, and hence should be excluded from future games. After the Games had ended, the entire Olympic team was invited to compete in Sweden. Owens decided to capitalize on his success by returning to the United States to take up some of the more lucrative endorsement offers. United States athletic officials were furious and withdrew his amateur status, which immediately ended his career. Owens was angry and stated that a fellow desires something for himself. Owens argued that the racial discrimination he had faced throughout his athletic career, such as not being eligible for scholarships in college and therefore being unable to take classes between training and working to pay his way, meant he had to give up on amateur athletics in pursuit of financial gain elsewhere. Even worse, U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt never cared to congratulate Owens on his success. Roosevelt never publicly acknowledged Owens' triumphs, or the triumphs of any of the 18 African Americans who competed at the Berlin Olympics. Only white Olympians were invited to the White House in 1936. A number of explanations have been offered for the president's actions. Most likely, Roosevelt did not want to risk losing the support of Southern Democrats by appearing overly soft on the race issue. The Black Olympians who competed in Berlin were not recognized by the White House until 2016, when President Barack Obama invited the athletes' relatives to an event in celebration of their lives and accomplishments. Following the 1936 Olympics, where Owens won 4 gold medals, racism back home led to difficulty earning a living despite his international acclaim. Owens struggled to find work and took on menial jobs as a gas station attendant, playground janitor, and manager of a dry cleaning firm, and at times resorted to racing against motorbikes, cars, trucks, and horses for a cash prize. People say it was degrading for an Olympic champion to run against a horse, but what was I supposed to do? I had 4 gold medals, but you can't eat 4 gold medals, he said. Owens was prohibited from making appearances at amateur sporting events to bolster his profile, and he found out that the commercial offers had all but disappeared. It took several years for him to find his footing as a public speaker and public relations man, which eventually turned into a comfortable career. He also became a jazz DJ. His post-Olympics experience and the reality of being hailed as a hero in public, yet treated poorly in private, made him deeply suspicious of politics. Yet he was constantly being solicited for his opinions. At the 1968 Mexico Olympics, 2 Black American sprinters, Tommy Smith and John Carlos, used the moment after receiving their medals to give the Black Power salute. "The black fist is a meaningless symbol," said Owens. "When you open it, you have nothing but fingers. Weak, empty fingers. The only time the black fist has significance is when there's money inside. There's where the power lies." Later, he retracted his criticism and said that militancy was the only option for American blacks. Any black man who wasn't a militant in 1970 was either blind or a coward. By the time he died, Owens was financially comfortable. Presidents and governments in America and beyond were competing to honor him as a symbol of athletic wonder and of opposition to fascism. In the decades to come, Jesse Owens's record-setting performance at the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, the gold medals he won in the 100-meter sprint, 200-meter sprint, long jump, and 4x100 relay would be celebrated as a powerful rebuke of Adolf Hitler. A black man's incredible success in a crucible of hate served as the ultimate rejection of the idea of white supremacy. But this conventional wisdom is an oversimplification on 2 levels. First, Owens wasn't the only African-American star in Berlin, even in his own events. In all, the 18 African-American members of the U.S. team earned 14 medals in Berlin, 8 of them gold, 1/4 of the U.S. medal count. The entire African-American contingent, not just Owens, took the world by storm. Second, the performance of these black athletes didn't change those who believed in white supremacy, in either Germany or the United States. In their minds, there was no way for black people to win. The truth didn't matter. Stereotypes and hate were so deeply ingrained that any fact or fiction could be used to confirm them. If black people performed poorly, that proved white people were superior. If black people were victorious, that proved they had unfair advantages as a subhuman race. When black Americans emerged as the stars of the Berlin Olympics' first days of track competition, Joseph Goebbels wrote in his diary that white humanity should be ashamed of itself. He meant not only for losing, but for even allowing black people to compete. When Baldur von Schirach, leader of the Hitler Youth, suggested to Adolf Hitler that posing for a photo with the champion Owens would be good publicity, Hitler was repulsed by the idea. "The Americans ought to be ashamed of themselves for letting their medals be won by Negroes," he replied in anger. "I myself would never shake hands with one of them." American assistant track coach Dean Cromwell claimed black athletes had an advantage over more refined white competitors. "It was not that long ago," Cromwell said of the black athlete, "that his ability to spring and jump was a life-and-death matter to him in the jungle." It wasn't just black athletes that were hated even for succeeding. Some athletes won't be allowed to perform altogether. When it came time for the men's 4x100 relay, two runners slated to be on the team, Marty Glickman and Sam Stoller, were dropped at the last minute without rational explanation. It was Stoller's 21st birthday. He spent the occasion not celebrating a gold medal victory, but sobbing in his bed at the Olympic Village. Why were Glickman and Stoller, two of the rare American athletes in history to arrive at the Games and never have a chance to compete, benched? They were the only Jewish members of the U.S. track team. Many people believe American coaches and officials acted to spare Hitler the embarrassment of two Jewish athletes winning gold. On the women's team, a similar scenario played out when Louise Stokes was told she wouldn't compete in the 4x100 relay. For the African-American Stokes, it was the second time she was denied the opportunity she had worked hard to earn. At the 1932 Olympics in Los Angeles, she had also been pulled from the race. 2 times she had been on the verge of becoming the first African-American woman to compete in the Olympics, and twice she was denied. Even on the way to the 1932 Games, she had been victimized. White teammate Babe Didrikson, often lauded as the first superstar American female athlete and therefore a champion for women's rights, poured a pitcher of cold water on Stokes and black teammate Tidie Pickett on the train to LA. Something else was conspicuously absent from the proceedings in Berlin: African-American basketball players. Every team that had competed in the U.S. qualifying tournament was all white, evidence of the separate and unequal status of American basketball at the time. AAU teams hadn't integrated yet, in part reflecting the racist hiring practices of the companies that sponsored them. And black people played for segregated YMCA teams, none of which were invited to the tournament. Only a handful of predominantly white colleges had desegregated their programs. Giving a black team the opportunity to compete in the trials with the chance to make up half of the entire U.S. basketball team was an unthinkable proposition to the white men in charge. In fact, when UCLA's Don Barksdale became the first African-American Olympic basketball player at the 1948 Games in London, it came only after strenuous objections from some coaches and Olympic officials. Even after Barksdale broke the color line, for decades only, a token number of black players were allowed on the U.S. basketball team. It wasn't until the 1976 Games in Montreal that Team USA had more black players than white. In their whites-only structure in 1936, U.S. amateur basketball and the Olympic basketball tryout system were hardly different from the policies in Germany that prevented Jewish athletes from joining athletic clubs or competing for Olympic teams. It is essential to note that Adolf Hitler's belief in white supremacy and his disdain for anyone he considered racially inferior was not unique to him. During the 1930s, discrimination and racial prejudice were rampant in the hearts of many Europeans, including the French, Italians, Portuguese, Spanish, and the British. This era coincided with a time when European powers were engaged in the colonization and plunder of African nations, driven by a deeply rooted belief that Africans were inferior and in need of European guidance. Even the United States, despite its success in the 1932 Olympics, winning an astounding 103 medals during the Games, 41 of which were gold, did not treat its black athletes with the respect and recognition they deserved. Instead, many of these remarkable individuals were marginalized and subjected to racial discrimination. Jim Crow laws and black codes were still in play at the time, ensuring that blacks would never achieve the same level of intelligence, innovation, and success as whites. Today, Jesse Owens is remembered as one of the greatest black athletes of all time, and through the Jesse Owens Foundation. This nonprofit organization, founded by Owens' friends, family, and close associates following his untimely death, aimed to perpetuate the ideals and life's work of this Olympic champion and humanitarian. The foundation's primary goal was to promote the development of youth to their fullest potential, advocating for equal opportunities and justice for all. Jesse Owens' journey from a young African-American boy facing racial prejudice to becoming an international sports icon was a testament to his extraordinary talent, determination, and resilience. His victories in Berlin were not only athletic triumphs, but also powerful statements against the deeply entrenched racism of his time. Owens' success did not shield him from the harsh realities of segregation and discrimination in the United States. Despite his accomplishments on the world stage, he still faced discrimination and limited opportunities due to the color of his skin. This experience highlighted the pervasive racism that permeated American society, even in the face of international acclaim. In establishing the Jesse Owens Foundation, Owens' family and supporters sought to continue his legacy of empowerment and equality. The foundation's mission was to provide opportunities and support for underserved youth, helping them overcome adversity and reach their full potential. By doing so, it aimed to counteract the discrimination and inequality that had persisted for generations. Over the years, the Jesse Owens Foundation has undertaken various initiatives to fulfill its mission. These initiatives have included scholarships, mentorship programs, and community outreach efforts, all designed to uplift and empower young people, particularly those facing systemic barriers. The Foundation's work echoes Jesse Owens' own journey, emphasizing the importance of resilience, education, and self-belief. This brings us to the end of this video. Tell us what you think in the comment section, as we are always interested in your thoughts. As always, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos to let more people know the truth about blacks and to hear their own part of the narratives. Thanks for watching.